Good morning, everybody. So there's some coffee here if you want. This is with the filters. There's filtered U1, there's cups in the kitchen. All right. So my inclusive development project is still with this title that is not yet, of course, something that might stay there, but kind of it is a multi-scale analysis of natural and anthropogenic drivers of degradation of alpine tropical wetlands in the central Andes. So what is known? Some of you already saw these images from me. We know, for example, that this is, if we put all the water in the world, and by this I mean all the water, including the water of our tomatoes, the water of our bodies, the water underground, and the ice caps, it will have a sphere of more or less the radius of 200 miles, or 1,000 kilometers of radius. So it's not very much, but this is salt water and water that is not accessible. If we would just take all the fresh water out of here, we'll have a rather 100-mile radius sphere of fresh water, actually. And from here, if we actually, yeah, I know you noticed this little blue dot. That's actually water that is available on the surface of the earth, and not only in the ice caps or underground. So this is actually the real amount of water that is available in the world. And you say, well, wait a second, Lake Superior is bigger than that. Yeah, but this little dot of water is more or less like 50 miles high. So if we just consider the depth, average depth of Lake Superior is only 300 feet of depth. So this is actually way deeper and taller than, it's like 5-6 times taller than this sphere, than the, for example, Mount Everest. So just to give you an idea of how little the water in the world is to conserve and to live upon. So coming down to this area where my research is in the Central Andes, we know that it's an area that it's very important for local economy, especially for grazing of camelids. And this is, let's say, the old people, especially the ones that stay and live there in these environments. This is actually a picture I took. This is this lady explaining where the water comes from in her wetland. So this behind her is this wetland where she grazes her llamitas and alpacas. So more or less, if I'm doing a multi-scale analysis of the wetlands, I wanted to more or less put it in a graph in this other wetland, what is known already. So we know, in a rather good way, we know in a very micro scale the botanical composition of the wetlands. We know what kind of species are there, and this is actually the work that has been there. You can tell the scale is like very big. This is how we say it, big scale. We also know very well in a little scale that, for example, glaciers are retreating very fast. So as we see in this picture, the glaciers are important contributors to the hydrological system for the wetlands. We know that there are retreating glaciers everywhere. So we know that and that it's affecting. On the other hand, with a medium state of knowledge, we know more or less, and with a big scale and a little scale, the shape and geomorphology of the wetlands. This is, for example, how deep are the wetlands. It's interesting about the wetlands that they are important carbon fixation components of the earth. So, and in these areas, they also are important reservoirs of water. We know a little bit about their geomorphology in a broader scale. And we also know, for example, we have mapped, it's not that complicated to map the wetlands, and also make this with PPGIS, Popular Participatory GIS, also make these spoken maps about what people's ideas of the wetlands. Very little we know. In the little scale, for example, this local management of wetlands. People is actually managing the wetlands so that they fill up with more water. But we really don't know very much about how this works. We don't know the hydrology of bigger management. For example, here is like an old dam that has been constructed for water irrigation, and we don't know what's happening down the stream in these areas, and we also don't know what's the hydrology of the retreating glaciers affecting to the wetlands. We also don't know, for example, this is a map of underground water. We don't know what's happening in the central Andes with the underground water. So if we put all this together, my intention is to combine and integrate all these ideas, all this knowledge, and fill the gaps as well a little bit with other components that we know in a more integral analysis. So my contribution is to understand what's happening in these wetlands that make them successful and healthy wetlands, and what's happening in these other wetlands that are actually being depleting very fast. Why is it important? It's a little redundant, but not useless to remind us that wetlands, we saw these llamitas and alpacas, llamas, I'd say llamitas because the way we say it with love, are dying. And also the dams that you saw, for example, the dams, the picture of the dam I saw you, it's actually, this is the conditions of these dams actually. So there's something about the management that is not working. And this is a picture of President of my country, it's Evo Morales. He's very worried about this situation, so he went to a new lake in the mountains and said, okay, let's build a dam here. But he's just walking over a bofedal, over a wetland. And I'm just worried that his fast decision and determination to destroy this environment to build a dam is the best, actually, idea or not. So more or less I want to give some contribution to the knowledge whether it's okay to just destroy these environments with wetlands, with carbon fixation and actually resource of food for animals and livestock, just to provide water to the cities and actually transform the environment and make it more easily to evaporate, for example. So I just want to see if this new way of understanding wetlands is going to help. So this is some references I used, and just a picture that represents what's going on here. This is the local people, this is the community authorities, and discussing with a lady that lives upstream that has diverted the water so that she has nice bofedales, nice wetlands, but the people here doesn't have nice wetlands because she has diverted the water. This is a guy working in an NGO. It's just like trying to make a life with what he does there, and this is a copy of a project that is trying to help with what, for example, in this case, NASA, she's a researcher from NASA, can provide here. So it's very complex also in the geographies of the colonial researchers. We are very colonialist, don't forget that. Good, thank you.